is showing the, let's see, am I even showing my screen here?
I see page 2, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So the second page here is showing the different classes. Sorry about that. And these are offered at various dates. I understand they're 3 to 4 hour classes. They're webinar type classes, sort of like this. And they are limited seating, but I think it's pretty large, like around the 300 mark, although we had more than 300 at our webinar yesterday. So you might want to check this out if you're looking for education in these areas. And like I said, it's free of charge, and it's kind of this test drive course education, so you get a basic education out of these topics. So with that, let's get on to today. Yesterday, I hope you were able to join. We did a NIM Basics with Steve. Today, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into NIM Advanced topics. And so there were some questions that came up, and actually a lot of questions we didn't get to yesterday, which I'm still compiling into a note that I'll post onto the wiki. Probably not get there until next week, but I will get it there. And today we're going to go into a little bit deeper dive, like I said, and Steve's got some new topics, and some of those questions yesterday kind of followed in today. They were kind of advanced topics, so we'll see if we can cover some of those as well. Steve, with that, I'll go ahead and make you the presenter so you can show your screen and get started.
Alrighty.
There you go. You're the presenter now. And while Steve's getting set up here, everyone, this is the presentation materials are up on the wiki. The replay I put up to the staging area usually takes a little bit before it becomes public. As soon as it is, I'll put a link to yesterday's replay on the wiki. I did remember to hit the recording button about a few seconds after I get going here. But the recording's going on for a replay today. So again, the wiki link is in the invites that you get and the reminders that I send out and all that stuff. So if you've gotten any notes from me, probably has a link to the wiki in it somewhere. Check it out. All the past replays are there. The charts that I showed earlier on these courses, there's a link to that in there as well. And link to Steve's presentations are in there. So you can go up there and pull down the NIM Basics, pull down the NIM Advanced, and go back, check it if there were things you missed and those whatnot like that. So with that, Steve, looks like you're all set. I can see your first screen, so go ahead.
All right, Joe, very good. Thank you. And welcome, folks. Good morning. We'll talk today about some upgrade strategies. I know that there's AIX out there that needs to be migrated to 6.1. We're going to have 7.1 this fall. Yeah, there's AIX out there that's earlier than this too. I know there's some 5.1, 5.2 out there that probably could use moving forward if applications allow it. And so we're going to talk about that, and then also some advanced things, some scripts that have evolved for me over time in the years that I've had with NIM. Let's look at our agenda here. Well, first we'll talk about migration strategies, and then a little bit about 5.3 to 6.1, could be 5.3 to 7.1. That still applies. And the things, broad steps, not maybe exactly everything you would do in your environment, but broadly speaking, the steps we take to migrate the NIM master first, and then some methods that we use to migrate clients. And we make a distinction between migrating, where we change version or release from 5.1 to 5.2 or from 5.2 to 6.1, 5.3 to 6.1. That's changing version 5 to 6 or release 5.2 to 5.3. A migration is distinct from an update, where I stay within an AIX version. I'm staying 5.3, but I'm going from one technology level to the next technology level, or one service pack, one SP to the next SP. Both of these things, whether migrating, whether updating, we can make use of alternate disk methods, and that's always good because it preserves our original root VG, gives us a fallback path if we're not satisfied with the upgraded disk, whether it might be by migration or by update. I have a couple of pages on SUMA to update a NIM LPP source, but in fact, I don't use SUMA as much as I used to. At this point, I'm often on the Fix Central webpage to find out the exact name of a service pack. You know how it's 5300-11-00-02- a 4-digit number for the week and year. Once I know that name, I'm on the Fix Central page. I usually ask for the FTP instructions, and then I go to my NIM master and I FTP directly from my NIM master to the service website. So I don't use Summa that much anymore, but it's still useful. It could be useful in some contexts. We'll probably spend less time on it than I did just now. I have some steps here, a couple of pages on migrating VIO with NIM. It's not necessarily a documented process. When we got VIO 2.1, they shipped out migration media, DVD media, and a number of customers have said that I have a lot of VIO servers to migrate. I really don't want to insert media in each one. So I've been working on this. It changes over time with each fix pack. VIO fix pack, so it can evolve slightly, but I did have success with it early this spring, migrating both VIO servers underneath my NIM master one at a time. So it has worked for me. Next we'll walk through a few scripts, and when I say they're ideas for your environment, again, it's something that may not work exactly unmodified in your environment, but it'll give you some sense of what you can do. Some sense of things you might want to do. And then finally at the end, I spend a little time in the NIM adapters facility. How to configure a multi-homed client, that is, give them interfaces on several different networks during the NIM install. It also gives me the ability to configure an ether channel on the client at the end of install. One caveat there, the ether channel you configure has to be adapters that are not in use. So I can't include an adapter that is being used for my NIM install. So if I'm installing on ENT0, I need to build the ether channel on ENT1 and ENT2 sort of thing. So with that, let's go forward. Stepwise, in terms of migrating my NIM master, these are, approximately the things I would probably do. I would like to save the NIM database to a file, and I'll probably save it not in my root VG, but I'll save it out in the NIM VG if I can. I typically have a separate volume group for NIM on my NIM master, and if you remember from yesterday, I have a small file system at /export/res, miscellaneous resources. I'll save the NIM database out to a file in export res. I don't anticipate having to restore it, but this does save, the definitions. It saves the full path and file name of any BOSINST, image data, spots, LPP sources. It saves all my network definitions, my client definitions, and it's very quick. It runs, right from the NIM menus. Where I have used it, where it has been important to me is where I'm going to do a complete override install of root VG on the NIM master. I'll save the NIM database out into the NIM VG volume group, and I can overwrite the NIM master's root VG, install the NIM file sets, and then I point at the file out in the NIM VG and restore the NIM database, and I'm off and running. We do this when we are in beta test with new releases of AIX, and every new drop of the beta code calls for a complete override install. They don't want us to migrate or update what we already have installed. They want us to override it. So I want to save my NIM database and bring it back after the override. I'll save it here. Like I said, I don't anticipate having to restore it. I would likely take a MakeSysB of the NIM master root volume group to tape, or possibly use a make CD to DVD. Tape media, still a little less expensive than optical, probably faster, higher capacity, definitely higher capacity tape. With those backup steps taken, I'll make an alt disk copy. I'll run alt disk copy on the master's root VG, and I'll copy it to unused disks. I point at specific disks that are not in use on the master, and they will become the alt-inst underbar root VG. When I finish that, I'll make note of the physical locations. I'll record the physlocs for the root VG disks and the alt-inst root VG disks. I want to know exactly what specific disks I'm installing on. And at that point, I will shut down the NIM master, and I'll boot, AIX 6.1 media or 7.1 soon if I have it, and I will migrate either the root VG disks or the Alt-in Thunderbar root VG disks up to the new level of code. Migrating it says, I'm going to keep my existing NIM definitions. All my resources, machines, and networks should still be in the database, and they will still be served by my 6.1 master from the NIM volume group that he already sees on the machine. So migrating up AIX on the root VG should not affect any of my NIM services that I have out there. After doing the migrate, I'm booted from AIX 6.1. I'm running. I'll go ahead and I'll create an export 6.1 file system out in the NIM VG. And just sort of what we did yesterday, I'll SMITI BFF create the AIX 6.1 media into the LPP source. My last test on this was at 6.1 TL2 SP2. There you see the 6100-02-02. I'm still a NIM master. I can point at that directory and define it as an LPP source, define it as a NIM resource. Then I'll create a spot from that LPP source. My master's at 6.1. I have an LPP source. I have a spot at 6.1. I'm ready to do a NIM ADM test of a client. I'll pick a test client at 5.1 or 5.2 or 5.3, and I'll migrate. I'll do the NIM alternate disk migration up to 6.1 and test that. So that assumes that client has an unused disk. For me, if it's an LPAR, it's pretty easy for me to get another, virtual disk, get another LV out of VIO and provide it to a running LPAR and say, okay, I'm going to migrate onto that disk. So those are the steps I'll take to test the code level that I'm at, or the new code. Now, client migration methods. Migrating from an older level of AIX up to 6.1, going forward to, or 5.3, 6.1, going 7.1. One of my first options is NIM alternate disk migration, NIM ADM. On a running client, it'll create the Alt-in Thunderbar root VG on unused disks out in the client. In the reverse of a typical update, the client will make NFS exports, and the NIM master makes NFS mounts of those Alt-in root VG file systems, and then the master migrates them. This all happens while the client is running on his root VG. So I don't take an outage to prepare those alternate disks. And if it stumbles, well, it can back out, I can remedy the problem, and I can just attempt it again. Again, the client stays running on his root VG. So this could happen during the week. Maybe toward the end of the week. Maybe you'd like to, it is taking a snapshot of root VG at the time you create it. So maybe you don't want to run too far with root VG if you have things changing, like lots more log entries added, or applications added, users, for example. If you're subject to a lot of customization in root VG, maybe you want to do this toward the end of the week before the maintenance window. Sometimes people don't really want to migrate. They just want a new golden image at the new level. I can make a new MakesThisBe image, and I can alternate disk install that MakesThisBe. It does create an Alt-in Thunderbar root VG with the new MakesThisBe. It's just not an exact migration of what you have in root VG. Still preserving root VG. The third bullet there, MakesThisBe migration. This is a very interesting process, actually. It will allow me to collect the MakesThisBe off the existing production machine, even if it's down level for the new server, unsupported. It will allow me to restore that down level MakesThisBe on a new server's LPAR, and it's immediately migrated up to a supported level of code. MakesThisBe migration was meant for those customers that say, I have these LPARs running on this machine in production. Yeah, I need to get these LPARs to the new server, but I'm required to be at a new level of code. I do not want to upgrade production before I collect the MakesThisBe. I'm looking for minimum touch in production. That's who MakesThisBe migration is for. Collect the MakesThisBe at the level that it is right now, and we'll migrate it on the new machine. So those are my migration methods. My choices down below in the bottom half of the slide, updating within an AIX version. I might choose to do a NIM alt clone with an update all. So cloning creates an alt-inst underbar root VG, and using an update all, I can apply updates to the clone. If I don't have an alternate disk, if I don't have unused disk to use, I might do a multi-boss. I can create a standby copy of AIX on the same root VG disks. So if my active copy of AIX is mirrored on HDisk 0 and 1, I will create a standby copy that's also mirrored on HDisk 0 and 1. Then I can apply updates to the standby copy. I can boot from either the alternate copy or the standby, the active copy or the standby copy. It's my choice. So, got some examples of each of these, how these look, whether you migrate, whether you update. So, going forward here. First one we talked about, NIM alternate disk migration. At the master, it's just SMITI NIM ADM, and we select the client. And the NIM, at the client, he's running on his root VG. That existing root VG clones itself onto the unused disk. They become the alt-inst underbar root VG. As I mentioned earlier, the client makes NFS exports of those alt-inst root VG file systems. The NIM master makes NFS mounts and migrates them up to the new level. At the end of the process, a boot list can be optionally set to boot from the migrated disks. There's also an option to boot immediately. Usually you don't want that. You'd like to, do the reboot during the maintenance window when you can look at it. At your convenience, at the maintenance window, you boot from the upgraded disks, and you can verify the behavior, and if it's satisfactory, you stay there. If not, you set your boot list back to the old underbar root VG disks, and you boot back to your original root VG. So, minimal outage to prepare those disks, and a fallback path. That's what we're looking for here in all cases. The SMITI panel at the master looks something like this. SMITI NIM ADM takes me right in there. Target NIM client, I hit F4 to select it. What new LPP source to use, hit F4 to select. And what NIM spot, F4 again. Target disks to install. These need to be unused H disks in the client. This is one place where I will use HDisk names. I can log on to the running client and I can identify the exact HDisk names that are unused, the exact disks that I want to create the alt-inst root VG on. So in that sense, if I log in, I look at and identify them, I can use those HDisk names in here. I could fill in their physical locations if I want to be definite. It'd be quite all right. There's another field there, disk cache volume group names. Sometimes this process can drag a little bit with it's kind of intense NFS activity. If you find that NIM ADMs run slowly, you can specify a volume group on the master to do caching. My sense is that this thing copies most of the client's root VG to the master, does the upgrade there, and then copies it back to the alternate disks. So that can speed up the process. Down there at the bottom, of course, I'm going to accept new license agreements. And NIM ADM itself, you can watch things happen. You can watch for the alt-inst underbar root VG volume group to be created. You can watch for the alt-inst file systems to be mounted, and you can watch for packets. If I'm looking at TCB dump packets for the NIM master, watch for traffic back and forth between master and client. It can be a little finicky. In order to do this, you have to install boss.altdiskInstall.rte into the spot. And it's not installed in the spot by default. It's a SMITI NIM underbar res underbar op. Perform a cust operation on the spot of choice and install alt-disk install from the LPP source. Now the trick to this, right? A 5.3 master can be set to, NIM ADM 4.3.3 clients up to 5.1, 5.2, or 5.3. The trick to this is that alt-disk install at the 5.3 level needs to be installed in all spots. Install it into the 5.1 spot, install it into the 5.2 spot. You don't have to copy it into the LPP source. It just, the level of all disk install on the master needs to be installed in the spot that you're going to use to NIM ADM with. It's a little unusual to put a 5.3 file set into a 5.1 or 5.2 spot, but you do it in this case. Generally speaking, I found the error messages were coherent. When the thing stumbled, it would back up, and I could remedy the problem and try it again. Remember, the client is still running on his root VG. I haven't taken an outage here if this thing stumbles. So it backs up, fix the problem, try it again. Still client running on his root VG. Just one slide on alternate disk install. I'm not really migrating the root VG, but I want to preserve it. I build a golden image, a new standard build makes this be image on the test system, and I'll pull that from the test system over to the NIM master. And then I can use NIM to send that makes this be image onto unused disks out in the NIM client. You'll see it in the SMIDI menus on the master. I don't have it recorded right here. Again, the client stays running on his root VG. We are preparing the alt-inst underbar root VG on the client. When we get to a maintenance window, we boot from the alternate disks and verify the behavior. Again, if we like it, we remain there, and it'll be labeled on the root VG. The previous image is labeled old underbar root VG. So if you put if you NIM ADM down to HDIS2 and HDIS3, you'll see those in root VG, and you'd see HDIS0 and 1 in the old underbar root VG. And again, you can boot back and forth. If you don't like it, you can boot back to old underbar root VG. Now, this next process makes this be migration. This allows me to restore a down-level, non-supported makes this be onto new hardware, onto new Power 5, Power 6. It'll allow me to install on a new Power 7 hardware. And it will immediately migrate it up. In my case, I was going to 5.3 TL6, but you know, if you're going to 6.1, if you're going to 7.1, that'd be possible there too. Right? It avoids the requirement of upgrading the existing system to a newer version of AIX before taking the makes this be. I have production running here. I don't want to touch it. Can I take the makes this be at this level and restore it on the new server? The answer is yes. That's what we're going for. I network boot my target LPAR on the new system with a new spot, and it allows me to restore that down level makes this be image, and it's immediately migrated up to a supported level. It's in both the NIM from A to Z Red Book, and it's in the 5.3 installation guide, but it's not widely known. There are some twists to this thing too. You know, there's no boss menu support of makes this be migration. If you get in the boss menus, there won't be any choices for you to select it. So in this scenario, I have to go no prompt. That means I have to prepare a boss inst data file. I'll go into the new spot and get the boss inst template file and make some modifications to it. I'll copy the template file up to my res directory, and it's specific for this particular client. I'm going to identify physical locations of disks. This boss inst data resource will be specific to one client. There's some mandatory fields up there, 5 mandatory fields. Install underbar method equal migrate, existing system override equal yes, prompt equal no, recover devices no, and that says that where I collect this makes this be is going to stay running at that IP address. Where I restore the makes this be, I'm going to use a new IP address. All right, so I'm not going to recover devices. And that new field there, you'll find it in the 6.1 template file by now, certainly in the 7.1 template. Makes this be underbar migration underbar device. Set that to network. Now, when I say no prompt, I have to specify target disk data stanzas. And I like physloc, physical location. I may have to boot up the new LPAR to SMS and do a network boot of the LPAR with a boot image, right? And get on with and leave prompted alone. Get on the menus to identify these physical locations. When I have those physical locations up on the console, I'll be able to look at them. I'll be able to copy them to the BOSINS data file on the NIM master, and then I'll boot the target LPAR again with the BOSINS data file. Physical location is the most definite identifier for a target disk. You know you're shooting at the right disk when you do this. So I need a BOSINS data file with these settings. I'll take it through and NIM define it. And the last trick to this thing, you can't just NIM-O BOSINS a MakeSysB install to a target LPAR if your MakeSysB is at 5.2 and your spot is at 5.3. It's going to give you an error. It's going to fail you. So the trick to this, on the master, we'll pre-allocate that down-level MakeSysB to the target client LPAR. NIM-O allocate, -A MakeSysB image, the older MakeSysB, I was using 5.2 ML9 in this case, to the client. And then on the master, we enabled an RTE install. SMITI NIM _bar BOSINS, RTE install, new spot, new LPP source, and the BOSINS data file we created earlier, right? After that, we network boot the client. We network boot him with a 5.3 spot boot image. The 5.2 MakeSysB restores, and then it's migrated up to 5.3. Some odd twists in this thing. When you run it, when you try it, you'll be amazed at how this thing works. Use a test client first. That's my recommendation. Get familiar with what this looks like. Now, those are my migrations. Next slide takes us into updates. Staying in the same version of release, changing technology level, changing service pack. I can do a NIM alt clone.
So Steve?
Yes, Joe.
Maybe before we go into here, we had some questions on the migrations. Could we go through some of those?
Sure.
All right. So I don't know if you can get the questions window open again.
Let me bring up the panel here. Let me look.
Yeah. While you're trying that, we had actually several questions from different people, all basically asking the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see how you answer this. The question basically is, can you avoid, let's see, any chance that the NIM ADM will ever use NIM SH versus RSH?
For some time they told me that was in plan. I know at the end of 2009 it still needed R shell. I've not looked at it in the last 6 months. I'll have to go back to development and get an answer on that.
Okay, I think that's one of the key ones that we'll want to post on the wiki for sure, because I mean, just in this time I had at least 3 different people asking the exact same question, so it must be a concern out there.
Oh yeah, and there has been a little disappointment with NIM ADM that it is one at a time, one client at a time. Hey, I've got 1,000 LPARs I need to migrate. That's going to take me a long, long time if I NIM ADM. Some possibilities around that. Well, it's fairly easy to prepare to set up a client as a master. You could build a gang of masters. You'd have multiple NIM ADMs, but another possibility. NIM alt clone the client's root VG onto an unused disk, and that can take place without an outage. You could do several of those at once, during a maintenance window, where you'd actually take 10 or a dozen of these clients out of service, you could migrate them all at once as well. But you would have to take an outage. It would be a network boot of the system and a migrate of the alternate disk. So that's a way to get multiples at once, but it is going to require an outage on them.
All right.
Anything else we should? Well, it's support SH, RSH. It will likely not be straight SSH. It will be, it'll be R shell or it'll be NIM SH. A lot of people have had that, security requirement put on them to use, to get away with get rid of .rhost files, and NIM SH is to do that, but we're still looking for NIM ADM to work with NIM SH.
Okay. Let's see. One is
We migrated our NIM master from 5.3 to 6.1. Do you see any issues? You always use an overwrite. Oh, in a migrate, I don't use an overwrite. Well, that was only for the existing system overwrite, yes. That was for the makes this be migration, where I'm not migrating the existing server. I'm doing the I'm restoring the old makes this be on a new server, and then I'm migrating that. So generally, you wouldn't overwrite if you're doing a migrate.
Okay.
Now, migrating your NIM master from 5.3 to 6.1, I don't anticipate any problems with that. I fully expect a 6.1 master to serve all your 5.3, 5.2 resources just as it has before. It's been my experience in the lab. So.
Okay, how about, is it possible to do a 5.3 to 6.1 migration via alt disk without NIM?
Let's think about this. Yes, you could, alt disk clone, alt disk copy is an AIX command. So if you have unused disks on a particular standalone machine, not a NIM client, you could alt disk copy, create the alt inst root VG, and then with new installation media, boot that system with DVD and migrate the alternate disks. You wouldn't have to have a master to do that.
Okay.
I think when you boot new media and it sees down-level root VGs, the default is to prompt you, do you want to migrate, basically.
Okay. What about if you actually do put a down-level, if you do a make sysb migration and you put it on hardware that doesn't support that level?
Oh, well, that makes sysb can be quite far down level and unsupported on the new server. But the make sysb migration process allows me to restore, down level, unsupported make sysb and migrate it up to a new level. If you migrated up to a level that wasn't as far up as you needed, well, you're subject to any of the other risks you have of running down-level AIX on a new server.
Right.
Yeah. So some things may not work. Might not boot in the end.
Okay.
So you have to be at a supported level of code ultimately at the end.
Okay. Let's we had some people with hands raised, so let me try this and see if we can get this. So Michael Frederick, unmuted you. Do you have a question still? Are you there, Michael? Okay, let's try Pradeep. Did you have a question? Oh, Pradeep, we can't really hear you very well. Okay, Pradeep, I guess you're going to have to send it in because I don't think either your mic isn't working.
I'm seeing one question. What about SAN boot after migration from 5.3 to 6.1? I fully expect that to continue to work. We support partition mobility Power 6 to Power 6 in AIX 5.3 or 6.1. Partition mobility implies root VG on SAN LUNs. And so, if I've installed at 5.3 and that LPAR migrates, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to migrate, 5.3 up to 6.1 and still preserve partition mobility.
All right.
BizLoc, will LSCFG-VL output work? That will show me physical location, and it does imply that I have AIX running, right? So I'll see them in there. Otherwise, it's it's network boot to get a boot image down to configure all the devices and see them on the BOSS menus.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a physical location you're showing me there. PVID is, if you're on existing disks, PVID is also a pretty good identifier. It's pretty unique. One place where PVID can be risky, in an EMC business BCV, business continuance volumes, they clone PBIDs between those disks. And one customer I was with, this was some years ago, when they wanted to break out of some of that and reclaim some of the disks, we had 2 physical volumes with the same PBID. We had to kind of pick carefully which one to blank the PBID on and start anew with it. Development earns NIM enhancement shipped in AIX 61TL4. This about NIM SH. Elucidate on one at a time for all disk install. Specifically, the NIM ADM process. Because the client makes NFS exports and the NIM master makes NFS mounts, the master is going to migrate one client at a time. Like I say, the way I would try to work this, and I haven't tested this, but the way I would try to do it is I'll disk copy several clients, a gang of them. If you did 4 or 5 for a test, you'd know that you had enough. And then actually enable an RTE install of the new level of code for those 4 or 5 clients on the master. Shut the clients down and do a network boot. So I have to take an outage on those 4 or 5 clients and then migrate them. And I should be able to migrate, 4, 5, 10 at once.
So I did see a question up there, Steve, about NIM installing Linux. Are you going to mention that at all, or you just want to make some statement now, or?
There's some work that's been done there, but I'm not 100% sure of it. If you look on the NIM master, you'll see you can define a Linux underbar source, and they let you fill in, the location. They let you fill in whether it's Red Hat or SLES and what the version and release are. Where they lose me a little bit is when they assume that the clients must be in a DHCP configuration, because for power LPARs, and maybe I'm just being narrow here, I'm thinking you're going to use NIM to install a power LPAR. Maybe they're thinking I'm going to use NIM to install Linux on Intel, which would imply, DHCP or PXE boot on the client. But for Power LPAR, we're on an AIX server with this Linux source, and that AIX server supports BootP, and we have BootP client support built into Power firmware in the LPAR, so it's perfectly reasonable to do that. Now, so when I do NIM install, when I do Linux installs from an AIX server, I typically do it outside of NIM. I can do some manual config of that. I have a note of how I did Red Hat back in 2004. I'm going to reproduce that here again. It was on, I did it onto a Power 4 LPAR. And I also have a PowerPoint from a few years back of SLES, of SUSE Linux install, on a Power 5 LPAR and using the using VNC to access the console of the client during the install. We used that presentation in the, if you recall, the APV workshop, the Power VM workshop.
Yep.
So I have those 2 files. If you need them, send me a note. I'll get them to you.
Okay.
I've been doing some work again. I'm not on Linux all the time, but I'm getting back in it. I have a SLES 11 LPAR that is doing partition mobility on an NPIV disk, and I'm working up the same configuration with Red Hat. The quick and dirty solution for me was, I'm not breaking down on NIM here. Don't take this the wrong way, but I got the ISO images of the Red Hat and SUSE Media, and I put them into the optical library in VIO.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean it's a viable thing to do. So.
Right, but now that only works when you're on that machine, though, right? So.
Yeah, you're on one machine to do that.
Right.
Now, if I can get them installed on one machine, I can move them. I can do partition mobility to another machine. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm finding that
If you're on,
that's a play. So.
yep. But of course, then you have to live within the partition mobility, restrictions of everything, virtualized, Power 6, and all that, right?
Oh yeah, well that's true. Yeah, and there might be exceptions where I want to have something else. And a weird twist in that, right? I install from a virtual SCSI, virtual optical DVD, right? But that's got to come out of the LPAR before I can do partition mobility, because it's tied to a specific file on one server. That makes it not purely virtual until I remove that virtual SCSI adapter from the client LPAR. Let's see here. Migrate. You have a SAN boot system on 5.3, then migrate to 6.1. You need to update the SDD drivers to SAN. Quite possibly, yeah. There's an update there. At this point, we'd be encouraging you to configure SDD PCM, and likely your root VG disks would not be under SDD PCM, but your application volume groups would be. We might go ahead and use the MPIO paths for root VG disks. 10 or 12 at one time. Did not know there was a limitation. 10 or 12 migrations? NIM ADM?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that, what the context of that one was.
I'll have to look at that, what he's referring to there.
So yesterday, we had sent, actually I guess it was this morning, Steve, some stuff on Ether channel, and I see another question on Ether channel here, a couple of them. Why don't you go ahead and for everybody's benefit, other than Maria who had sent us that note, just make a comment about that.
Ether channel, now, my NIM master can have an Ether channel. And typically the way I would configure that, I have a couple, if I got 2 adapters, say, in the Ether channel, they're active, they attach to the same switch. I have a mode setting to use in there. If my network admin likes to put the switch ports into a specific channel group, then I'll use mode equals standard. If my network admin configures LACP for server attaching ports, that's an auto detect of a link aggregation, LAC, link aggregation control protocol, then my mode in AIX will be 8023AD on the Ether channel. Whichever mode I use, whether I use standard, whether I use 8023AD, I'll also use a hash underbar mode of SRC underbar DST underbar port. I'm going to add source and destination port numbers into the hash on the Ether channel. The reason I do that is normal hashing on an Ether channel is by IP address. And if I have one server talking to many clients, they all hash over the different adapters in the Ether channel, and that works pretty well. But a single server that my one server talks to, just server to server, they will only hash onto one adapter just by IP address. Well, adding source and destination port numbers allows multiple connections server to server to hash over the different adapters. It's my best chance at getting the bandwidth of multiple adapters between, point to point here in the network. Now, another thing about Ether channel. With using mode and using hash mode, we've configured AIX readily to transmit on all adapters. But you might get on AIX and you might start looking at the adapter statistics, and you might find the switch is delivering all the receives on one adapter. That's not all the bandwidth we expected. And it turns out the switch also must have a hash mode setting as well. Cisco has one. One thing to know there is when you turn on the hash mode for Cisco for one aggregation, it's on for all aggregations. Maybe that's not a bad thing. I haven't looked at other switches, but I'm certain they have a similar setting as well. in order to get the receives packets bound, destined for AIX to come on multiple adapters. So that's my master. A client is going to network boot on a single adapter. And he'll do his NIM install through one adapter. We can use the NIM adapters facility to configure an Ether channel on a client at the end of install. And I've got some slides on it here. One caveat there, I cannot include in the Ether channel the adapter that I'm doing the install on. So think of it this way. Maybe I've got an admin network that has HMC and NIM master communication to the LPAR. And then maybe I have two physical adapters that are, public facing, that, attach out to the enterprise network. I could configure those as an Ether channel and have that configured at the end of the NIM install for me. I'll show you that at the bottom of the presentation.
So sort of related to that one is this RTE migration doesn't work with a client that has an Ether channel set up? Question is, are there plans to change this restriction?
I haven't looked at that. If they said that it just flat will not work, I'm kind of surprised at that. An RTE migration. Okay, yeah, I will have to pick one adapter to do the network boot on. And so we're picking one adapter in the aggregation, but we're not getting all the traffic, I guess, of a migration.
So,
in that scenario, I would rather than boot, I don't know how many of them you'll have with an Ether channel. I think a live running AIX system with an Ether channel should allow me to migrate in that case. The Ether channel stays up and running, and it will NIM ADM on the alternate unused disk. Yeah, I could see where we could have a problem there where we network boot on one adapter, and the switch thinks I've got two adapters to deliver packets on, and we don't get all the traffic. That might be where we hang up, and that could be the reason that hash mode is off in the switch. Possibly.
And David said the image after the migration will not have Ether channel.
Oh, it takes it out, huh?
Yeah, that's David Pan said that. So is it possible? I mean, somebody wrote in here issues with configuring Ether channel of one port, which is sort of, defeats the purpose maybe.
We do that with what we call a network interface backup or a NIB. We put one adapter in the Ether channel and one adapter specified as backup. That says all traffic is on one adapter unless it fails. There's no channel configuration on the switch for that config. So if there was confusion about delivering packets on all adapters, that we won't be doing that in that configuration.
Right. But so the comment is then later deconfigure it and add the second one.
You could do that, and after the migration. And the reason we could do that is AIX supports this thing called dynamic adapter membership in the Ether channel. So at a later moment, you could you could change the config. You could put the backup adapter into the config, or the backup adapter and the Ether channel adapter typically attach to two different switches. So maybe you want to go with one adapter initially, and add the second adapter later.
So can you split it? And so again, David has this comment about you can only have one NIC in the Ether channel.
You could move it out before the migration and move it back in. The question is, down on my switch, I have two ports that the switch assumes are in an aggregation. I don't know if we get by that dilemma. We're working on a single adapter, but
okay.
Okay, you're telling me I need to do more testing here is what you're telling me.
Well, there's always more testing to do, Steve.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Well, you know how it is. You'll do some testing. You'll nail it down exactly the behavior. You'll put it on some slides, and then there'll be some corrective service that changes it. So
yeah, well, that's it. And then somebody will want to try something different.
But and I find that sometimes you have to revisit things periodically because behavior does change.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Well, okay. Well, I think, again, we haven't made it through all the questions, but I think we should get going more on migration stuff.
We'll press on forward here.
Yeah.
Let's make that small again there. So migrations and yeah, okay. I'll look more at the Ether channel piece on that. In the window here. Okay. Those are migrations. Now we'll talk about updates, I'll build the LPP source at the new service pack or technology level, the new desired level, and I'm looking to have the S images attribute on it still. Right, system images. I can do a full base install with this LPP source. I'll update the master from that LPP source, and then I'll take his reboot. Usually, a new service pack, a new technology level is going to call for a reboot. It's going to update, Boss MP64, or it'll update BossNet TCP client. And most of the TCP stack is in the client file set. Any update to libc or is going to require an update or a reboot. And doing a NIM clone, if the client's mirrored, we've had some experiences where we had to unmirror. It was an unmirror VG, let's say I'm mirrored on HDISC 0 and 1. It was unmirror VG, root VG, HDISC 1. You might get a message about quorum being on for root VG at the next reboot, and you can ignore that. Let's clear the boot record, the HD5 copy off the disk. Change PV-C, HDISC 1. Let's reduce VG, root VG, HDISC 1. Let's take HDISC 1 out of the volume group. And let's rewrite the boot record, boss boot-A, and set the boot list to only HDISC 0, boot list-M normal, HDISC 0. Now I've completely freed up HDISC 1 as an unused disk. I can make my alt-inst root VG on it. So on the next page there at the master, it's SMIDI NIM alt clone, and the target client will select him with an F4 and specify the target disks. Let's use the disk we just freed up in the client. It's in the running client, right? HDISC 1. We're going to clone root VG, and then further down the SMIDI panel, they ask you fixes to install. Put in the field update underbar all, and when you do that, you also have to specify an LPP source. So let's hit F4 and select the new LPP source and accept licenses. So client stays running on his root VG. The clone and update takes place onto alt-inst underbar root VG, HDISC 1. At a maintenance window, we boot from HDISC 1. We boot from the alternate disk and verify the behavior. If it's acceptable, we stay. If not, we boot back on old underbar root VG. When we're satisfied, when we're up on the alternate disks at the new technology level, and we're satisfied with the behavior, we might want to mirror back onto the older disk. So let's alt disk install -X to clear off the old underbar root VG off HDISC 0, and let's extend root VG, extend VG root VG HDISC 0. And let's do the mirror. And, I've got a note in here about message quorum off on next reboot. Actually, at current levels of code, what you'll get is a message, quorum change takes effect immediately. And that's good news, actually, because it saves me the reboot at the bottom of the page. When we get in a 2-disk volume group, we want to turn off quorum checking. So when they tell us quorum change takes effect immediately, that's good. I'm on the 2 disks mirrored. I'm going to rewrite the boot record, boss boot-A, and set both disks in the boot list. Now, like I say, if quorum is off immediately, I don't have to do the reboot, the shutdown -FR. Next few slides are on multi-boss. Maybe I don't have unused disks in the LPAR to NIM Alt clone on. I can make a standby copy of AIX on the same root VG disks. If I'm on physical disks, they're usually quite large. I mean, 70 gig is now getting small. At 5.3 ML2, we got the multi-boss capability. So on a single H disk or on mirrored H disks, I can create 2 bootable root VGs. It'll be either, active copy and standby copy. The default is to copy root file system, user, var, opt, and home. You can add other file systems to that list, if you've created your own local file systems in root VG. If you don't include them, they will be the 2 OS images. So if I boot the active copy, I will still mount the local file systems. If I boot the standby copy, I still mount the local file system. So it'll mount in either copy of the operating system if there isn't a copy of it made. There's a lot of flags on multi-boss, but the key examples are at the bottom there. One thing before you start, you might want to verify that HD5 can be extended onto 2 contiguous partitions on root VG disk. Now, if your PP size is 128 megabytes, if it's a big one, maybe you're okay without that. Where we had a problem, I think, was where our PP size was about 16 megabytes, and it was not big enough to write the boot record at the end of the process after adding updates. And so what happened here? We ran, we created the standby copy of the operating system, multi-boss-big X small s. And after that, we added updates to the standby copy, multi-boss-XAC, and the location was an NFS mount /images-shell/images. These are kind of 2 long-running steps to get to the very end and say, not enough space to write the boot record. Now, we didn't take an outage, right? We stayed running on the active copy while we were doing 2 long-running steps on the standby copy. So we didn't have an outage, but it was 2 long steps to find out that, don't have enough space. And so for that reason, you might want HD5 to be a little bit bigger. The information in this, the log file for multi-boss is in an unusual place, etc multi-boss logs, opt.alog. And it's not really an alog file. It's plain text in there. So maybe they had ideas they were going to use the alog facility, but they didn't. If you look at this log, while the process is going on, you can look at this log. You'll see active file system root, standby file system /boss_inst. And you will see that prefix boss_inst on all the file systems that are created in the standby copy. A little farther in the log, you'll see him creating standby boss logical volume, and you'll see he has a boss underbar prefix on all the LVs. Boss underbar HD5, boss underbar HD9 var, so forth, right? He creates the LVs, he creates the standby file systems. At the very end of this, if you check the boot list -m normal-o, you'll see HDisk0 in there twice. Boot logical volume, boss underbar HD5, that's the standby copy. Boot logical volume HD5, my active copy, my original. Right? If I'm mirrored on HDisk0 and HDisk1, I'll see 4 entries, 2 for HDisk0, 2 for HDisk1. I can change the order of them. HDisk0 BLV equal HD5, HDisk0 BLV equal boss underbar HD5. You can look at the boot list again if you want, see the different order there. Now, these are 2 boot logical volumes. HD5, boss underbar HD5. They need to show up as bootable devices in SMS, right? Of course. There would be no value to this if I couldn't boot from the standby copy, right? So how do I identify them? I noticed at the very end of the multi-boss output, the very end of the log, that include list logical volume, boss underbar HD5, standby BLV, and you notice he's 4:4 there. Active boot logical volume, HD5, there's a :2 there. Right? So I'm going to look for those values when I boot up an SMS. And that's what I have on the next screen. And you notice it's the same one. I see two bootable devices. I see partition equal 2, part equal 2, and I see part equal 4. Part equal 2 was the active copy, HD5. Part equal 4 was boss underbar HD5.
And how do you tell that?
From the log output previously.
Oh, the 2 and the 4. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you might have to be aware to look in the log so that you can identify them when you SMS. Now, I'll go back 2 pages, Joe. You've set the boot list, so you have an idea which one is in order here.
Right.
Which you should have booted from. When you reboot, you can query it. You can boot info-B also to see which one you booted from. But identifying them in SMS, yeah, you have to know that number. You have to know that recovery string for BLV. Now, 2 copies on one disk doesn't protect you from spindle failure, but maybe it's a SAN LUN. It's protected in storage. It might protect from an operator mistake, but we don't have to try that sample syntax and verify it. I'm not encouraging that. A couple pages on SUMA, a lot of words on these pages. Maybe that's part of why I don't use SUMA as much anymore. I used to look at these slides about every 2 weeks. That's why I put all my examples in here. This was before I used SUMA before we got into service pack and technology level, because one of the request types you could make was all underbar latest. We don't do that so much anymore. They really want to keep us at service pack or TL. So now it's request type SP, and it's request name, and I have to spell out the full service pack name, so it's more digits, right? And I can preview what's installed, what it will download, and then I can action download if I choose to do that. I might pull down an LPP, a TL or service pack into an LPP source, for example. You can do some things to update a running client. This maybe would be outside of NIM, but you can write what is already installed on the client into a file, lslpp-big L small c into ./list. And then I can show me request type security or critical fixes based on this filter sys file ./list. Show me what security fixes or critical fixes are available for this guy. Show me an APAR. If I ask for an APAR or RQ type, I have to give an RQ name, the specific name of the APAR. I was using, SUMA to, bring a service pack or technology level down into an older LPP source. I mentioned this yesterday. I will, from time to time, copy an LPP source at, say, 53TL8 to a new name, 53TL10, and I'll download TL10 into it. But really, it's better to build a new LPP source from new media. You're less likely to miss new base file sets. You might not have it 53TL8, but they are on 53TL10 media. We don't automatically ship media to customers anymore. I think customers thought they were being bombed by it. So it is by request, but I'm pretty sure if you're SWAMA, you can request new media whenever you choose. You can get on a website and make the request. SUMA, one more page. They've done a lot of work. If you use a proxy to access the internet, there's various options you can use with SUMA. You clear the proxy settings with assuma-ca HTTPS proxy equal and a blank. You can set environment variables, or you can use things on the command line. I like some of those that call for user and password, right? -A, right in the middle of the page, -a HTTP proxy, username, password at yourproxy.com, :8080. If it's HTTPS, it's :443 on the end. For all that said, I don't use SUMA much anymore. I want to know the exact name of the service pack. I have to go on the Fix Central website to get that, and I will generally get the FTP instructions right there. So I don't use SUMA as much as I used to. These are the names of these service packs, and can you get equivalent code at different technology levels? My belief is yes. You know, we first got in this, we said, we're going to roll out 2 technology levels a year. And, you know, customers have said, I can't change technology level twice a year. I have applications that certify at a given technology level. And for that reason, they are now supporting technology levels for 2 years. And I expect that and I assume that there's some overlap in the level of code in each. So if you look at the top one in each of these, 5.3 TL6 Service Pack 9, 0844, I believe that's equivalent code to the middle one, 5.3 TL7 Service Pack 6, 0844, and I think it's equivalent to the top one, 5.3 TL8 Service Pack 4, 0844. It's a way for us to get updates to you but keep you at the same technology level. You know, sometimes for application requirements you have to stay at a given technology level. A couple pages on migrating VIO from 1.5.2.1 to 2.1. Migration's kind of nice in that it preserves my SEA config. It preserves all my vhost virtual SCSI disk mapping. It would preserve my NPIV mapping as well, where I've done the VFC map to attach virtual fiber channel and VIO server to physical fiber channel port. Booting the migration media they provided, I still had some file set microsurgery. You know, I was like, it gave me some complaints about boss.ined. Now, I don't think anybody's using INED these days. Could be wrong. I was a little unsettled that I had a discrepancy on virtual fiber channel client support, but this is a VIO server. He has no client fiber channel, virtual fiber channel adapters. And you know, just some things we observed. On a migrated VIO, the InfiniBand driver was at 5.3.8.1, but on a Scratch 2.1 install, it was at 6.1.2.0, 6.1.2.2. It was I found the virtual fiber channel at that same level on a Scratch VIO install, but it was not at all on a migrated VIO. So you know, life wasn't perfect here. You can get that DVD image nonetheless at the Fix Central page, or you've probably received it if you're Power VM keyed on your server. But I wanted a NIM strategy for this too. I didn't really want to boot the media, and I thought if I prepare some NIM resources, I can fix some of these missing file sets in the process. And so I got the migration DVD into my my VIO, and I copied the install PPC directory from that migration DVD. I copied it onto the NIM master, and I called it the LPP VIO 2.1 MIG, the migration. I called it an LPP source. And I added a few things to it. You know, I don't want to go adding AIX maintenance wholesale to a VIO resource, but I knew that I was deficient with some of these file sets. And so I went into my AIX 6.1 TL2 SP2 LPP source, and I got a few file sets copied. And I probably figured out I was deficient on these, you know, by the instfix-ICQK on the VIO of a migrated or OS level-RL. What am I deficient of, basically? You know. So I had my LPP source, and I went ahead and started off. I did a scratch install of a VIO server at VIO 1521. Copied the BOSSINS data file onto the NIM master from the VIO migration media. And I went ahead and enabled the RTE install of VIO server with that migration LPP source, with the BOSSINS data file, and a VIO 2.1 spot that I extracted from a VIO 2.1 MixSB. In the end, I got migrated VIO 2.1, now showing the same technology level as the scratch install VIO 2.1. If you call support, they'll tell you, well, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is iOS level. Well, if I'd called about AIX, it would matter. So, you know, I like things to match. And most people I know do with me on that. So. This is still a work in progress. It might look a little differently if I try it again today, if I try it again 6 months from now. But you know, these are some of the things I went through to migrate VIO. From here, we go into various scripts that have evolved for me over time. And they won't necessarily work exactly unmodified in your environment, but they give you some ideas of what you can do. This was part of a first boot script that we built for a customer years ago who wanted all the default services turned off after the install on the client. And so you can see we just did a series of SEDs, stream edits. We worked in inetd.conf, we worked in rc.tcp/ip, and we worked in etc inittab. There's an option in AIX 6.1, secure by default. We'll probably do this, but it does more than this. It removes or hides certain services and file sets. It might hide, for example, the Telnet D daemon or the RSHD daemon. So it does a significant amount of lockdown. There is a way to turn it off on a client so that you can restore the missing things, but I know it's doing more than just turning off things in these files. This next script goes on for about 3 pages, my get underbar MakesThisBe script. This thing maintains generations of MakesThisBe images from your clients. So you run get MakesThisBe with a -m flag and a machine list. Which clients do you want to collect the MakesThisBe from? You can run it with a -r that says I'll remove the oldest MakesThisBe for this client before I create another MakesThisBe. And if I run it with -r and -n, it says remove the oldest MakesThisBe and don't create another one for him. Right. I made some modifications to it. You always have to specify a machine list now. There was a time when I didn't. If you ran it, just ran get underbar MakesThisBe, it would go out to every one of your clients one at a time and collect the MakesThisBe image. Well, no, we don't want to do that. I never want this thing to go out and run off against 1,000 clients. I mean, it could be working for weeks. So we want to specify a machine list. Next page, you see me setting the variables empty, remove old, machine list, and no make, and then we parse through the command line options, and I put a few checks in here. I'm going to give you the usage message if you run without a machine list, and we'll exit. I won't remove a MakesThisBe image without a machine list. I must have some command line arguments. Any way that I can stop this thing, I'll stop you there. And we commented out the setting of the machine list to all clients. And now, for each machine in the machine list, for M in the machine list, if remove old is not null, then we will remove the old file. We'll figure out the oldest one. You can see me in there doing an ls-lt for the machine. And then we'll nim-o remove the resource as well, the nim resource definition. Now, one thing in here, you can see I default to /export/makesThisBe. I need to put one more command line flag in this thing, and -D lets you specify the directory if you don't want to be there. Okay, that could be a student exercise. That's possible. So that's removing the old one. And on the next stanza, on the next page, we look at no make. If no make is null, then we're going to go ahead and take the makesThisBe image. And you see me setting the file name there. Well, I'm going to check if there's a directory for the client down export makesThisBe /client name $M. If it doesn't exist, I'll create it. And then my file name is machine $M _ year, month, day, hour, and minute. And that's where I'm going to go collect the makesThisBe image. NIM-O define -T makesThisBe server equal master make image yes, and go ahead and write it. So there's that. This next one is my script that I run as an RTE, to customize an RTE install. I mentioned most people use a makesThisBe image, but I'm doing more work with RTE images in our lab. Just an install from the master as if I were installing from media, and then I customize with the script. And you see me bumping up all the file system sizes by one block. I'm setting some content for roots.profile. If OS level is 5.3, then I'm going to do a change dev on asynchronous I/O, change dev -LAIO0, and I'm setting some values in there. Yours might be different. The key thing here is autoconfig equal available. This is a NIM script. It's running after the install, at the end of install, and before boot. If I set async I/O available now, when I boot, async I/O will be on. I won't have to take a reboot on it again. I like to set file size unlimited for root. This long stanza at the bottom is setting a root password. There's got to be an easier way than this, but this has worked for me for a long time, so I keep it. That encrypted password in the middle, you'll want to mouse your own encrypted password in there because you won't know what mine is. Next page, I will change dev on more than just H0. I'll change dev on any MPIO disk, the HCheck interval to a non-zero value. And this is happening, again, before boot of the client at the end of install. I want the client, after boot, to be checking these disks, checking MPIO disks, checking failed and non-active paths, and I'm saying every 5 minutes. I think most people are settling on 60 seconds, HCheck interval 60 seconds. And it will bring back failed and non-active paths when they come back available. The scenario here is client LPAR on top of 2 VIOs, both paths enabled. When one VIO server takes a reboot, one path goes failed. When that VIO server comes back up, within the HCheck interval, the failed path comes back available. I want that to happen automatically. That's why I'm setting HCheck interval non-zero there. Yeah, I put in local comma bind in netsbc.com. And the rest of this thing, you see me making an init tab entry on the client. And I'm making it after RCNFS. I'm making it way down. I want rc.net to run, rc.tcp/IP, and rc.nfs. Because the things I want to happen on the client are going to use the network on the client. And it'll be, I've finished the install, the client boots, processes the init tab, and then I want them to do a few more things on the network. I'm installing AIX from one LPP source. I want to call in, this case, the SSL 5.3 bundle from a different LPP source after the install. In the next stanza, I'm calling in the SSH 5.3 bundle from, again, the different LPP source than I installed from. 61TL4, 7.1, they're both now packaging OpenSSL. I expect better behavior with that rather than me having to pick it all the time. I still have to go get OpenSSH. So I lose one of these stanzas. I use only the bottom one. I put some other commands in there. I'm going to have this script that I'm building set some NO options. And I'm going to check if my OS level is 6.1 or 6.1.2. I'm going to do some different configuration of async I/O. 6.1 AIO is always on, and I now configure it with the IOO command. And the last thing that this script will do, oh, sorry, not quite. I have an RMTCP IP in here. That'll set the client back to localhost if you're using this same IP address in multiple clients, if you're using client after client after client. The last thing this script does is remove itself from the init tab, RMI tab, sknim. I want this script to run on the first boot of the client and then take itself out of the init tab. Won't spend much time on the cron script here to keep addresses enabled. Main thing is we can look at certain clients on the master. I run this from cron every 15 minutes. If the C state was ready for NIM operation, it would re-enable them. So for the benchmark center, different addresses do different installs. Keep them always enabled, right? So they can use it on this machine, that machine, the next machine. This short script here, resetting the client machine state. I put these three commands into one script on my master. If I enable a client and have to use a different LPB source or a different script, then I need to reset the client with these three and then re-enable him with new resources. I'll do that. Getting short here on time, I know. Multi-home NIM client. I wanted to install my client. I wanted to have multiple interfaces configured on it. I wanted to set the host name to one of the other interfaces. I wanted to configure NIM-SH. And then I wanted to test some things. I wanted to preview and update all. Can I collect and make this be? And do I still have HMC to client communication? And I was successful in all of this. So moving quickly through here, I have a NIM master on one subnet. We'll call the 9.19.51 network the admin network. The client is also on the same network. BMAR 28 is going to be at 9.19.51. I have a 229 there. That would be 228 actually. So you see the interfaces that I need on the client. I want an admin network. I wanted a public-facing interface that the client's peers out of the network would communicate with. I wanted a network for backup, say for TSM, and I wanted one network for Oracle High-Speed Interconnect. So I want to install through the admin interface. I want to see all interfaces configured on install. I want to set the client's host name and configure client communication for NIM-SH. And then I want to test, do I still have all my NIM functions and DLPAR functions? Yeah, see, I am 1Q09. I still have NIM ADM requiring R shell. So the way I do this, I define an adapter def resource for NIM. I made my directory, then I SMITI NIM, manage, define an adapter def. And I just said call it adapters, and the location is /export/adapters. When he's configured, I can ls-nim-l and see that, yeah, there's a NIM resource there, just like I thought. Then I added up a secondary adapters stanza file. And you see me putting in an export res. I'm not putting in an export adapters. I'm going to put this in export res, and I'm going to parse it into the adapters resource. Some certain default settings. Then for this client, BMAR 28, I have these secondary adapters. You know, this net adder on EN1, this host name. This net adder on EN2, and this host name associated with it. You can use location instead of interface names. For Ether channel, I've used multiple physicals. I'll show you that here in a second. I get this edited up the way I want. And then I use the NIM adapters command, NIM adapters -p to preview, -d to define. And he says, use this file, export res bmar28.adapters, and write the definitions into the adapters resource, NIM adapters, and then the resource name on the end. What I got out there in export adapters bmar28.adapters was these secondary stanzas. You might be able to edit those again. I didn't try it. I allocated that resource to my client, and I did the RTE install, enabled the RTE install, and network booted the client, performed the RTE install. Client is booted, he's up and running. I went in and I looked at netstat-in. Yeah, all the interfaces are configured. Didn't get my default route that I was looking for on EN1. I had to add it. I'll have to look at that, why I didn't get it. In Etsy hosts, I got all the secondary addresses and secondary host names added accordingly. I set the host name to the enterprise-facing interface. It was saying BMAR28 on the admin. Let's set it to BMAR28.129. I was able to configure NIM-SH, and I left SSL encryption off. I went NIM-SH, but I did not SSL encrypt here. I think I'll have better luck now that we've decided what level we're going to package with AIX. After that config, I was still successful in previewing an update all on the client from an LPB source, and I collected a MakeSysB from it, and I was able to DLPAR memory and a virtual adapter into BMAR28. So this is all looking pretty good for me. I was satisfied with it, except for that route, that default route. Ether channel by NIM adapters. If I'm installing on ENT0, I can configure ENT1 and 2 into an Ether channel, or 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see here, this is one example, client LPAR ECO4. I built the stanza like this in export res, right? Machine type Ether channel. I know that the adapters I'm putting in here, I DLPAR them in. ENT1 and 2. I knew that when I Ether channeled those together, they would create an Ether channel ENT3. So I said interface name EN3, put this IP address on it. The adapter attributes, adapter names equal ENT1, backup adapter was ENT2, so I'm making a nib, all right, and give me mode standard. The operation to customize the running LPAR. Well, I did the define, right, and it built up the stanza. And then at the bottom here on the master, it's nim-o customize this client, use this adapter definition. And it went ahead and configured the Ether channel in the client LPAR and put the IP address on it. It would work the same way during a client install. One other example in Ether channel, multiple physloc. So if I know the physical location of two physical adapters, and you can see this was a PCI slot C06, port T1 and port T2. So put them in there. You notice my network at the time was still 100 full duplex. I had to slow them down for that. And I set adapter attributes of mode standard, hash mode, source, and desk port. So probably missing a double quote on the end there. NIM adapters to preview, NIM adapters to define, and this guy did configure an Ether channel. It will give you an error if you try to use the adapter you're installing with. It just says adapter in use. It shows up in the NIM logs on the client at the end. So I know I ran a little long. How are we doing, Joe?
Well, we're
that we can hit a lot.
No, I think, well, we're just over time here, Steve. So I think probably what we'll do is apologize everyone for not getting all the questions answered. But what I'll do is capture all these in a document and send it to you, Steve. Of course, it's going to be some effort on your part to just put in an answer to each one, or the ones that you can, and then I'll post those.
Best approach, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Some of these I'll have to think about.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, it gives you a chance to, if you have to do some research on them or something like that, you can. Yeah. So, but
the questions are good. Because I think when, the questions that you folks ask, there's other people that want to know them. So,
oh, absolutely.
I kind of like the input, and I kind of like, getting it, and we'll do the response on it.
Yeah. So I'll capture those, put them in a document, send them to you, and then whenever you get them through them, Steve, then I'll post them on the wiki. So for everybody that's hanging on here, look for them, probably not till next week, but look for them out on the wiki site. Okay, so with that, I think we'll end today's webinar. I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank Steve, but you especially for spending 2 days and all this time. It's fantastic sessions, and appreciate you doing this for us.
Oh, you bet, Joe. Thanks for having me, and for all attendees, thank you for your time today. Appreciate you joining us.
Okay, and before everybody goes, one, make sure you, if you can, do the survey at the end of the webinar, and two, next month in July, we're doing AIX tuning with Earl Jew, bringing Earl back, so some performance tuning stuff then. So I hope you can join us then, and I'll be sending out the appropriate emails and invites for that. Okay, so once again, Steve, appreciate it. Thanks so much. This has been fantastic.
You bet. Thank you, Joe.